Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have, I guess, 50 minutes, and what I'm going to try to do is crunch 5 years of research into 50 minutes, including my experiences, which were nonstop for a 2-year period. So as you can see, I'm going to be flying through all of this. And if you have any other questions, you could hit me up outside later on. I'm going to be talking about, very briefly, about the Free Experiencer Research Study, which is the world's first comprehensive, multi-language, statistical, academic research study on UFO-related contact experiencers. The name of our organization is the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. We have 2 websites, experiencer.org and consciousnessandcontact.org. And we have cards outside, just pick up a card. We have chapter 1 from our book, our 820-page book. We have chapter 1, which is 120 pages, available for everyone to download for free. Our email is info.experiencer@experiencer.org. Okay, this is just to show you that I'm overeducated. I went to Berkeley for a PhD, Cornell for a master's, and I'm an attorney. My first experience and my wife's experience started in March of 2012. Before then, I would have thought everyone here was crazy. This is my wife, my daughter, and our dog. Our dog, Nena, was 16 years old when she all of a sudden became totally paralyzed. We called our vet. He said she probably had a cerebral hemorrhage. I'll bring her in tomorrow to the office so we can euthanize her. My wife, who's a hardcore Catholic from Mexico, began praying all night. And me, the total atheist material rationalist, said, a lot of good that's going to do you. In the morning, we checked the dog out. The dog was still paralyzed. I went back to sleep. When my wife went down the stairs, she saw this object in the middle of the living room. Being a good Mexican, she thought it was the Virgin Mary. She knelt down and started praying, okay? After a minute or so, she started yelling for me, Ray, Ray, Ray. I totally ignored her. I said, Sunday, 6 o'clock in the morning, leave me alone. She went upstairs and dragged me out of bed. When I got downstairs, she was a couple of flights of stairs ahead of me, walking down. All of a sudden, she disappears right in front of me. Then, mind influence took over. You like that word now, Joe? Mind influence took over, and I didn't care that my wife disappeared. I saw this object in our living room. I looked at it and I stared at it, and then, excuse the French, I said, 4-letter word, screw this shit here, this is the junk that she got me up for this crap, And I said, I turned around, walked up the stairs, and it put me to sleep, knocked me out for 45 minutes later. 45 minutes later, when I woke up, my wife was in the middle of the living room in Spanish saying, Aleluya, aleluya, los ángeles la curaron, los ángeles la curaron. The angels cured her, the angels cured her. And the dog was running around the whole living room, okay? The way I describe it is like an atom bomb went off in my head, okay? My wife had 45 minutes of missing time. For those that don't know what it is basically, from her perspective, she walked down the stairs, she looked down, the dog was running around the living room, she started celebrating, okay? I asked her, where in the hell were you for 45 minutes? She had no idea. 2 months later, the dog now woke her up at 3:30 in the morning. Instead of going through the back door, the dog wanted to go through the front door. My wife opened it up, boom, this is what she saw. So now I knew this was UFO related. And in our organization, we don't use the term UFO, we use the term UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, because when you use the term UFO, people automatically associate a flying saucer with it. And as Grant said before, this is not about flying saucers. This is much, much more complicated. And the objects that people are seeing are anything but flying saucers. They do see that, but that's a very tiny percentage of the people. But anyway, that's what my wife saw. 6 months later, I was waiting for a friend outside the house. at 9:30 at night. I was killing time. My friend was late. I said, the hell with it. Let me try to call down the craft, the object that my wife saw. 15 minutes later, this thing appeared on top of my next door neighbor's house. As you can see, that's my car on the right-hand side. That's the ranch-style house of my next door neighbor. And this object was literally like 3 or 4 times bigger than this. But I couldn't move backward to take that picture of the house because there was a tree in front of it. So if you can imagine this times 4. After that experience with that craft, 45 minutes we were watching that craft. Telepathic communications back and forth. My daughter was there. They told me to get my daughter, okay? Again, mind influence. The way they got me to leave, all of a sudden I was being attacked by hundreds of mosquitoes, okay? When we got back inside the house, the door was wide open. My wife was in the front. I told her what happened. She goes, oh, how nice. Like something had happened to her. I don't know. She doesn't know. And then when I told her we had to come in because these mosquitoes were killing me, my daughter goes, Daddy, there were no mosquitoes outside. And it's like the hypnotist snapped his finger, and I woke up out of that trance, and then I was fully conscious. Ran, got my video recorder, my camera, nothing was there. 45 minutes, witnessed by my daughter, myself, and 3 adult friends. After that began, for the next year and a half, a whole series of what Grant was talking about. Out-of-body experiences, near-death simulated type of experiences, being taken to other realities, lots of stuff that you would be labeled a crazy person, okay? But you'll see in our survey, the experiencers are having all of these phenomena, including training, like Grant had stated earlier. The free organization was developed over a 3-day period. And you could corroborate this with 2 of our surviving co-founders, Mary Rodwell and Dr. Rudy Shields. Okay. Basically what had happened was that I was driving into downtown Miami in the middle of a traffic jam, 8:30 in the morning, and then I was not in my car anymore. I was just pure mind. Then all of a sudden I'm inside this huge, gigantic spinning wheel. The wheel didn't have any physical divider spokes, but in each category of what a spoke would be was what I now call the contact modalities. These are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence. Then it wasn't a voice, it was just information that told me, but it wasn't a verbal communication or anything like that, that these are all the different ways that humans are communicating with us. Okay? Humans are seeing it as separate and distinct phenomenon, but in actuality, it's one phenomenon. Okay? And the glue that's holding it all together, humans are calling it consciousness. But in fact, it's the very fabric of our reality, okay? Of our digital information reality. And then it said, you need to inform humanity. You need to inform humanity of the relationship between them, this non-human intelligence, the spirit world, and consciousness. You will need assistance. This is not about money. You mean getting rich and making money out of this. And the people that will be helping me have to be individuals that have minimal ego. And then poof, I was back in the car in the middle of a traffic jam saying to myself, what the, you know what, okay? Totally, mind blown, okay? So this is the first day. When I get back home, Mary Rodwell, who's one of the major UFO contact experiencer researchers, she's not a ufologist. She researches and gives therapy and support to individuals that have had these experiences. 6 months earlier, I had sent an email, and Grant is one of them that received that email, because you are having these experiences, you want someone to talk to. To my wife, it's all angels, 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 okay? I couldn't talk to her, okay? You're an atheist, you wouldn't understand, That's what she would tell me. So I sent an email out to a lot of famous names in ufology, because at that time I thought that's what it was, and Grant was one of them, and he was one of the few people that responded back. So here's an email that I had sent to Mary Rodwell 6 months ago. She says, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry I'm responding to an email that you had sent me 6 months ago, but it just popped up on my computer today." Okay. Then I had a Skype call with her, and we were like 3 hours on Skype till like 1 in the morning. The very next day, I get a phone call from Dr. Rudy Shields. Rudy is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University. "Hello, Rey Hernandez." "Yes." "Who's this?" "Dr. Rudy Shields." "Who?" Okay. I won't give you all the details because we don't have a lot of time. He then said, "Ray, write down this telephone number. This is the telephone number of my mentor." And I said, "Well, who's your mentor?" And he goes, "Dr. Edgar Mitchell." And I'll talk a little bit about Dr. Mitchell. Then I called Edgar that afternoon because I worked up the courage to give him a call after like 4 hours. And then he invited me to his house the very next day in Lake Worth, Florida. Stayed in his home 6 hours. Okay. Our organization, Free, was established at his home. Coincidence? I don't think so. Dr. Rudy Shields, an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University, one of the world's leading experts on black holes, editor-in-chief of the Journal of Cosmology. He is also the executive director of our organization. So this is not just some clown off the street that's directing our project. Edgar Mitchell, another co-founder, sixth man to walk on the moon, the founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences, which is the world's leading premier academic research institute on ESP, telepathy, precognition, and energy healing. Mary Rodwell, Australian researcher, one of the world's leading researchers on the UFO contact experiencer phenomenon. She's assisted and supported, not for research, but to support people. She's a licensed therapist, more than 3,000 cases in her 30 years of this work. Again, when I mention the word UFOs, what I really mean is unidentified aerial phenomenon. When I mention the word ETs, we don't like to use that term, but I do it for presentations. Our preferred term is non-human intelligence, because we don't know whether they're physical, they're non-physical, intradimensional, interdimensional, whatever. We don't know what this is. We are a 501c3 research organization. We're not a ufology organization. We have zero interest in what Grant talked about earlier, about rocks falling from a UFO, about taking pictures, about videos. In 70 years, mainstream ufology has given us zero. We know nothing about this phenomenon if you follow mainstream ufology. We believe that the key to understanding this phenomenon, as Grant had said earlier, is the experiencer. We also believe, remember like that big wheel that I showed you before, that all of these contact modalities, they're not separate and distinct phenomena, but they're part of one phenomenon. And as was given to me, the glue that's holding it all together is consciousness, which is the very fabric of our reality and how we as human beings interact with this reality. It's much more complicated than that, but that's like a basic gist. What I'm going to talk about very quickly now is the world's first comprehensive academic multi-language research study of this phenomenon. We spent 9 months developing the research methodology and 4 years administering the survey. Our 3 surveys, the first 2 are quantitative in nature. 600 quantitative questions. Phase 3 was comprised of 70 open-ended, which is you have to write out the details to 70 questions. We advertise it on YouTube, Facebook, over 100 radio shows, mailing list of more than 6,000 names. So if you're interested in this phenomenon, you got that information. We sent it to all ufology groups, the evil, dreaded alien types, you know, that are creating hybrid babies, to the love and light crowd, you know, that these entities are non-evil at all. So everybody got this message. The paranormal folks, to the esoteric folks, to the out-of-body folks, to the near-death experience folks. Okay. A correction here. We ask individuals to answer these questions only upon conscious explicit memory, not upon lucid dreams, because what the hell is a lucid dream? My dream for someone else could be a lucid dream. okay? Lucid dream is very, very specific. So you cannot argue scientifically whose is a lucid dream and whose is not. Same thing like hypnotic regressions. I took a Dolores Cannon class, paid $300 for it, okay? Now, does that give me the right to be able to go and do hypnotic regressions on folks? And there's tons of people doing these hypnotic regressions with no serious training whatsoever, asking tons of leading questions. So conscious explicit memory, and we're also doing it in multiple languages. And what I'm presenting here today is the English language survey. Also, most of what you hear in ufology, mainstream ufology, and in the YouTube and internet is people associate contact with UFO-related contact with non-human intelligence with abductions, okay? What we discovered is that abductions is only 1/3 of the contact experiences. The other 2/3 are individuals that have seen UFOs, have had contact with non-human intelligence, but have not had any abductions. They might have had an abduction, they just don't remember it, okay? But the vast 2/3, no abductions. So when people always refer to it as abduction research, they're missing 2/3 of the people. Very important to note that. Our questions. We ask questions on numerous areas that mainstream ufology has never even focused on. The family history, telepathic communications, contact in a 3D reality, either on Earth, on a UFO craft, or some other location, contact in a matrix reality, where people board like Jodie Foster in the movie Contact to some other reality. We've had almost double the amount of people that have been brought to other realities, we're calling it matrix reality, than people that have had an abduction. Ufology doesn't know that. Okay, the researchers of working with experiencers know that. We explored tons of questions on the psychic and paranormal phenomenon. We also asked the appearance and the nature of this non-human intelligence. We also asked questions about what information they told you. We talked about the physical experiences, and that's where the abduction stuff comes in. Lots of abduction-related questions. But we also asked lots of questions dealing with the psychological profile of the individual before and after. How did they change from all of this? Okay, these are the number of responses that we got for the different phases. As you can see, this is thousands of people. This is not 4 or 5 people, 10 people, 15, thousands of people that answered our surveys. 4 major findings, okay? We've had hundreds of findings here, but if I were to put it in a nutshell, what are the major findings? Number 1, contact experiences are overwhelmingly positive. And that's not what's being circulated on the internet, on YouTube, and in these ufology conferences that some of you might want to go to, okay, or have gone to, okay? Usually people don't talk about that, but yet our survey data from thousands of people reflect that fact. Number 2, individuals are having a major psychological and behavioral transformation for the positive, and I'll go into those details. Number 3, the contact phenomenon is primarily a paranormal, a psychic, ethereal type of experience, not material, not physical. And Grant alluded to that earlier in his interview, and I'll give you lots of examples of that. Number 4, there's a manipulation of space-time. And I don't have time to go into the definitions of that, but basically that gets into the hypotheses that we're dealing with a multidimensional phenomenon, okay? Like in my case, I was out for a half an hour, out of body, but I was returned to the very split second of that radio interview I was listening to. So that means that no time had elapsed, okay? You'll hear the same thing with near-death experiences. My father had a near-death experience that he told me, you know, when I had a series of NDE-related type of experiences. He said he was up in heaven for 20 or 30 years because God was giving him he didn't use the term life review, but the formal term is life review. He's showing you all of your experiences, the good and the bad, and you're reliving it inside your body and inside the body of the other person you had affected. So he told me he had just come back from 20 or 30 years in some other reality, but yet his operation lasted a couple hours. His heart bypass. Okay. I'm going to skip over the physical aspects of the sightings of the UFOs. So you can see 76% of the individuals have seen the UFOs. These are what the UFO did. And we grouped them by country group areas, and they're very consistent to each other. We'll skip all of that. 76% of the individuals took our survey have seen a UFO. The other 24% have either had a family member that have seen a UFO. So somehow the wife saw a UFO, but the husband didn't, or the wife did, the husband didn't. The other person took the survey because they were having all these paranormal experiences. So that's why it's not 100% UFO related, but 61% have had witnesses. Usually people say, oh, this guy is, bullshit artist, But yet, they're witnesses. Like in my case, there was 5 people that saw this huge, gigantic craft. And that's 61%. That's quite typical. 54% have literally called down to see a UFO, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And Joseph Brooks, there is an expert on that right there, Dr. Joseph Brooks. 58% have deliberately called a non-human intelligence. My wife did that. And poof, these 3 7-foot human-looking beings dressed in white monk's robes started floating in front of her. 58% of the people have had that as well. Okay, was your experience positive, negative, or neutral? I'm going to be flying by all this statistic here. We asked that question, how would you describe your experiences, positive, negative, or neutral? 66% said it was positive, 29% it was neutral, 5% said it was negative. Now, is this what's being circulated in the YouTube, in the internet, that everyone's so crazy about paying attention to? 99.9% of what you read and what you see in the internet is bullshit. Okay. Only 5% stated that the experiences were mainly negative. 84% do not want their contact experiences to stop. 9.7% believe that this non-human intelligence are bad or malevolent. 62% have stated that whatever this intelligence has actually tried to help them. 71% feel an expanded consciousness in the presence of this non-human intelligence. 66% feel love in front of these beings. Now let's look at specific beings. These are physical beings now. Okay, a lot of these experiences are non-physical because a lot of it is telepathic. But let's look at the physical beings. Also, just to let you know, these aren't the only type of beings. There were literally hundreds of different types of beings that Grant had alluded to earlier. But let's take a look at the major ones. The number one type of being were not the evil, dreaded little grays or the evil, dreaded reptilians. The number one type of being was the energy being, which happens to be one of the major physical type of beings in a near-death experience. Right, Alex? 55% of the individuals saw energy beings, okay? Out of those, only 7% viewed them as negative. 52% saw human-looking beings. Out of those, 5% said their experience was negative. The evil, dreaded small grays, okay? 51% of the people had experiences with small grays. Out of those, only 11% said their experiences were negative. Okay? Again, another contradiction with mainstream ufology. If you go to these UFO conferences, they would have you think that all these small grays are carving your body up and taking reproductive organs, things of that sort. But in fact, that's a small sliver of the story. In actuality, it's much more complex. The spirit and ghosts, a type of beings, 47%, 7% had negative experiences. Now, with the NDE phenomenon, 3 of those types of beings are seen in NDEs, okay? We're talking about an energy being, human-looking beings, and the spirit and ghost types, okay? Now, there's some overlap because it's difficult for you to categorize these things, but this is just to give you an impression, an idea, okay? Now, I'm going to skip over to the evil, dreaded reptilians, the ones that rape your wife and eat your children, okay? Right, now, let's look at the evil, dreaded reptilians. Out of those, 23% of the individuals say that their experiences were mainly negative. If you would watch a David Icke video, you would think that's 110%, okay? So David Icke is full of shit. Okay? When we looked at phase 3, where the people actually had to write down the details of their experiences, the vast majority of those 23% was the physicality of these beings. All of a sudden, right here, there's an 8-foot-tall reptilian, 500 pounds, bulging muscles that makes a football player look like a wimp, okay? All of a sudden, he's got a crocodile head and a long tail, and he's just staring you right in your face. You're gonna be pissing in your pants, okay? So, they didn't rape your wife or eat your kids, but the vast majority of these people were just scared shit from seeing that being, okay? That's what these people told us. In terms of how many people had actually physically seen a reptilian, 368. So we're not talking about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 368 people, okay? That's reality. The internet is bullshit. If you could stop your ET contact experiences, would you? Only 16% said yes. Question for you. If this was so bad, so evil, so negative, why did, what's the number there? What's the mathematics there? 84%. Why did 84% keep it coming, baby? Keep it coming. So, okay, is that what's on the internet? No. Do you believe they're bad, malevolent, evil? Only 9%. And those probably are these Christian fundamentalists. No offense to any of those, but you know, there's a certain sector in this field that come from that field that's saying that they're devils, okay? And they're all over the website. Okay, transformational. That's another major finding, okay? We asked over 16 questions of how did these people change? How were they before? How were they after? Okay? Depending on the question, between 73 to 85% of these individuals underwent a profound psychological behavioral change for the positive. Okay? The overall question, did your ET contact experiences change your life in a negative or positive way, and how much? Okay? 51% said highly positive, changed my life. For the better, for the positive. 22% said it slightly changed my life for the positive. So right there we got 73%. Now, are these people that are just, you know, having psychological breakdowns? Yes, many of them had it in the beginning of their experiences. In the beginning of their experiences, 38% of these individuals saw their experiences as negative. But then, I'm going to go over later on, over time, they had multiple experiences. And with time, their experiences became more positive, and they reflected back on what happened to them in their initial experiences. And they said, well, you know, okay, I was paralyzed on a table. I had a little gray checking me over, doing some stuff on me. But then later on, like Grant said, I was brought on a ship. I was allowed to actually operate the ship. It can't be that bad, right? You know? So that's just an example of how these experiences change with individuals. Okay? That's just the same data, same facts. Okay. We asked approximately 60 questions that the psychological profile changes. Okay. Since I first became interested in my UFO contact experience, okay, I'm just going to go over the strongly increased. As you can see, strongly increased in the first category, my desire to help others. 51% strongly increased. 24% increased somewhat. So right there we get, what, 75% of individuals, all of a sudden, they have a desire to help others. Before it's like, screw that guy, you know? I don't care about that person. My compassion for others. My appreciation of the ordinary things of life. My sensitivity to the suffering of others. My concern with spiritual matters. Look at that, 83%. In my case, I was a total atheist, material rationalist. These beings led me through a series of, which is, I don't have the time to discuss, but where they brought spirituality to me, okay? This happened to many experiencers. All of a sudden, highly spiritual people. My desire to achieve a higher consciousness. My appreciation of nature. My spiritual feelings. My concern with the welfare of planet Earth. My understanding of what life is all about. Like me, I was totally clueless. I was just going to work, you know, supporting my family, You know, go out to have like dinners on the weekends with my wife every 2 weeks or so, you know, leading a mundane life. When I die, I get buried. You know, I didn't care about cemetery, and my will said, you know, burn me up, you know, to save the money. Okay? Okay? So that was me, and so many of the other experiencers. My personal sense of purpose in life, my concern with ecological matters, all of these are increased substantially. Now let's look at what decreased, okay? My concern with material things in life, my interest in organized religion, my competitive tendencies, my fear of death, my desire to become a well-known person, okay? Now, question I have to all of you. Look how these people are changing. These are the people you want as your neighbors, your best friends, and things of that sort. This is what you want the world to be. So if these entities are so bad, so evil, hey, why don't they do this to the whole freaking world? Okay? Do it to the whole world. We would not have wars. We would not have our American president. We would not have selfishness, ego, people ripping each other off. You know, we would still have some of that, right? But much greatly diminished. Okay? So my perspective is, why don't you do this to everybody? What was just a few? Okay? Now, is this what you see on the internet? These ufology conferences? No. But yet, thousands of people, right there is documented proof what thousands of people are telling you. In other words, the internet is bullshit. Okay, this is just a summary of what I just told you. Okay, now let's get into the paranormal experiences. Remember I told you that this phenomenon is primarily a paranormal and psychic phenomenon. There is a physical component to it, but it's a minor component to it. Okay? 95% have had paranormal experiences in their home. 80% have had out-of-body experiences. 37% have had near-death experiences. 51% have had a medical healing, either on themselves or a member of their family. And Dr. Joseph Burks, a retired medical doctor right here, wrote one of the chapters in our book on medical healings. We literally had over 1,000 individuals that detailed their medical healings in a research study. Out-of-body experiences, 80%. Near-death experiences, 37%. The medical healings, 50%. Actually, it's 50 and change. Okay? Telepathic communications, 78%. Were they ever brought to a matrix reality? 50%. Past life memory, 66%. Have they seen a ghost or a spirit? 76%. Were they actually given a glimpse or actually taken to what people perceive as heaven or a spirit world? 46%. Have they physically seen, not through a picture, but physically seen small colored orbs? 67%. Objects mysteriously appear and disappear, like airports, 25%. Objects falling and moving around the house without any reasonable explanations, 61%. When they return, just like near-death experiencers, okay, seeing energy auras around people, 74%. And similar to NDEs, people get return from direct physical contact with psychic precognition skills. Okay. I already talked about all of that. 29% have channeled the non-human intelligence. 45% have memories of visiting the spirit world, etc., etc. 49% have had out-of-body travel in space. All of a sudden, their body was out in space and they were looking at planet Earth underneath them. Crazy stuff, right? Okay, let me just quickly jump over these things. Conclusion: contact with non-human intelligence is primarily a paranormal and psychic experience and not a physical experience. While all contact experiences do have physical experiences, the vast majority of these experiences are comprised of paranormal and psychic experiences. Information received. Excuse me. 80% have received communication from non-human intelligence. Was this communication in your native language? 75% said yes. I'm just going to go over the yes. Did the ETs impart reassuring messages to you? 61%. Did they provide spiritual message? 54%. Did they give you messages of love, oneness? Oops, I skipped. Sorry about that. Messages of love, oneness, 54%. Did they express to you concern about humanity's behavior? Like, for example, we're destroying our planet, 45%. Information about advanced technology, physics, other scientific information, 42%. I wish I had more time to give you examples of this. 0 minutes, and I'm 1/3 through the presentation. Oh, 20. Okay, fantastic. I saw a 0 up there. Okay. Did these entities give you an environmental message? 39%. Et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go through all this, but you can read it and you can see it. Okay? The messages continue. Okay, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm skipping a lot of this. Okay? And it goes on, the messages. Messages of reincarnation, 26%. Of an agreement that you came into being with an agreement with them, the entities. Okay? Did they tell you that you actually are part ET? Okay, 26%. Okay, now, spirituality and spirit world experiences. Again, you go to a ufology conference, you're not going to get any of this. All right? You go to the internet, you're not going to get any of this. But yet the experiencers are telling you what really is going down. 97% believe that non-human intelligence can travel to other dimensions. This is all belief, what they believe. And then later on, I'm going to show you what the entities told them. 91% believe that there is a grand plan in motion and that experiencers are all part of that grand plan. 89% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the paranormal. Almost 83% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the spirit world. 80% believe that these entities can travel to the past and to the future. 5% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and reincarnation. Isn't that a big deal there, right? You won't get that in the ufology conference. 45% have reached an agreement with non-human intelligence. 38% believe that non-human intelligence, they consider them modern angels. That's me. Okay? 30% have been taken aboard a craft. That's not me. But some of you might have been taken aboard a craft. 31% were given messages of God or a universal creator. 30% were told by non-human intelligence about the death process, the spirit world. My best friend, who's the world's biggest experiencer in the world that no one knows about, he's a highly skilled professional who's now retired. His wife is a PhD psychologist. Their daughter's a PhD psychologist. This human being dressed in white tunic appears right in front of him and he said, Ray, I was visited by Zeus. I said, what do you mean you were visited by Zeus? Well, he looked like Zeus. He was like 7 feet tall, very muscular with a long beard. He says, Alberto, you've been thinking a lot about what it is to die. Because Alberto's in his early 70s, right? You know, natural time to think about that. Not yet, Joseph, okay? So he goes, I'm going to show you what death is like. And he gave him an NDE, okay? He flew out of his body, so his body underneath. He went through the tunnel, right? Racing through the tunnel. He says, look, Alberto, when you die, you got to go through the light. Don't hang back. You got to go through the light. And I'm just abbreviating the experience, but just to let you know, you know. So that's an example of people being brought to the spirit world. Others are literally brought to the spirit world, not necessarily through near-death experiences either. 28% were told by these entities where they were from. 26% were given a message about reincarnation by this non-human intelligence. 25% were told of their mission on Earth. 25% were shown how to do energy work. 25% were told by them that at one time they were a non-human intelligence. 24% were told by non-human intelligence about their past lives. And one interesting commonality with near-death experiencers, there are literally like over 50 commonalities that I discovered. One of them is so many of these contact experiencers turn into energy healers. Okay? Many of you can identify with that. Okay, outside, there's like half the people that are energy healers. Okay? Right? So, same thing with near-death experiences. They come back all of a sudden, they want to take a Reiki healing class, you know? So, there's so many overlapping characteristics here. You think you're going to learn that on the internet? Or a ufology conference? Okay? This is thousands of people that are telling this, not some pseudo expert in the field who thinks he or she knows it all. They don't know shit. Contact experiences in a matrix, excuse the French, okay? I was born and raised in New York, you know, from the streets, and occasionally it comes out. Contact, Joseph Burks, I say he turned out differently. He also grew up in New York, in the streets. Contact and relocation to a matrix reality. Again, you're not going to hear this in a ufology conference. But go watch Jodie Foster's movie, Contact. She was brought to a matrix reality where she encountered non-human intelligence. We had almost double the number of people that were brought to these matrix realities than people that had abductions. Let that sink in for a second. Okay? Not all individuals have had an abduction, but yet if you go to these UFO conferences, that's all you're going to hear. Okay? In actuality, only 1/3 of the people have had an abduction. The other 2/3 have not. Okay? 749 were taken to a matrix reality. People that were brought to a UFO craft, 708. People that have had an abduction, 489. But yet ufology describes this as abduction. It's much more complicated than that, folks. Much more. In the matrix reality, the entities, 45% said it was a human-looking entity that they interacted with. Okay, because a lot of people are brought to this matrix reality, but they don't interact with a non-human intelligence. A lot of it is telepathic, so they can't really check off the box of the type of entity, because it was non-physical. It was just, you know, like in my case, I didn't see a physical being. It was all telepathic communications. But these are the 584 people that described a physical entity. 45% were human-looking, 38% was some other type, because that was a category that we had there. 35% were spirit-looking beings, 21% were short grays, and 15% were tall grays. 66%, 67%, 2 out of 3 of them said consciousness. Their consciousness was separated from their body, like in my case. 56% stated that their thoughts were sped up. 75% said that their senses were more vivid than usual. 49% stated that this reality, time stopped or was slowed down, like in my case. But look at the number. Half of the people. 55% stated that they felt united or one with the world when they were in this reality. 38% stated, like Grant had said earlier, suddenly, all of a sudden, they knew everything. They knew everything. Universal knowledge. Very similar to NDE experiences. Where is Alex? The light I can't see. Is that you there, sir? Is that typical of NDE experiences as well that you've read? You're not paying attention there, brother. 38% stated that they suddenly seemed to understand everything about the universe. But that's a common characteristic, right? Okay. Same thing with NDE experiencers. No one, I don't, except a couple of people might have asked that question in some of their surveys on NDEs, but 83% stated that their experience was very real. Okay, as real as I'm talking to you right here. 83%. So this is not a lucid dream. They were brought to this freaking place. They physically saw these things, they heard these things, they smelled these things. Very, very real. 393 individuals stated that they were brought to a council meeting of a hierarchy of all these different non-human intelligence. You hear that a lot. Well, we got 393 people. 198 said that they were actually brought to this council meeting. Okay, the type of beings, this is just a graph that show that the human-looking being and the ghost and spirit form and the other category of the type of beings. Now, let's go over some of these physical characteristics, physical experience and abductions. Have you had an ET contact but have no conscious recollection of ever being abducted, which is defined as taken against your will to another location? In other words, you've had contact but no abduction. 68%. So ufology is missing 68% of the people that have had UFO contact experiences. And the opposite question, have you had contact, but you had an abduction? 34%. We asked two separate questions. That's why you get these two different responses. We asked the question of people that have had abductions to categorize their experiences. Okay, 35% said that they are a conscious contactee. That in the case of being a conscious contactee, you're an egalitarian, equal relationship with this intelligence. 35% said you are not an abductee, but a contactee, where you're being treated with respect and understanding. So right there, who's good in math here? 70%. Okay, so 70% said, look, I'm not an abductee, I'm a contactee. Another 8%, so now we're up to 78%, said it was still a case of an abduction, because they took me against my will, but where they sought my permission, where I was treated humanely, with compassion. 78% we got now. Is this what the bullshit internet is telling you? When you go to UFO conference, okay, and I recently got a trailer of a proposed documentary on the abduction phenomenon, okay, the UFO contact phenomenon. You know what that trailer was? This woman for 2 minutes screaming, "Ah!" You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay? Does that accurately portray what really is going on? No, it's part of the phenomenon of what people have experienced, and I'll go over that in a couple of minutes. It was still a case of abduction, but of milder kind, a slightly more caring kind, 13%. Now, the worst case scenario, it was an abduction of the most negative kind, 8%. So still, it's 8%, that's a lot of people, but it's 8%. Okay? Visually seeing a physical being, 1,800 people. 85% interacted with them in some way. 63% said that they had a witness to this. Like in my case, my wife and I saw two different things, because before she was taken away, okay, she saw that little craft in the middle of the living room. And I saw the energy being after she was taken. So we saw two different things, but we were pretty much there at the same time. 54% have seen these beings more than 10 times. Okay, I already showed you this. I don't know why this slide is here, or did I show this before? I showed it before. Okay, I can skip that. The different types of beings and how they perceived their experiences. What it says now, approximately how many times have you seen or interacted with this non-human intelligence? As you could see, 40% of the people have interacted with these beings more than 20 times. From 11 to 20 is another 6.2%. Between 8 to 10%, oh, the percentages didn't show. Anyway, the point here that if you interact with these beings, it's not going to be once or twice. It's going to be a lot of times. That's the vast majority of these people. Okay. Oh yeah, here's a better chart here. This is the number of times and how positive your experience was. So in other words, the more times you have contact, the more positive is your experience. The people that have had 1 or 2 contact experiences, those are the more negative kind. But still, it's 50% of the people viewed it as positive. Okay. The onboard craft experiences, you see that on the internet all the time, but 48% of the people said that they were not small grays, they were humans. Human-looking beings. Okay, got it, 10 minutes. We'll skip over this real quick, okay? I already talked about that. How many times? Medical exams and implants, 34% consciously recall lying on a table and being medically examined. 20% consciously recall receiving an operation. 51% believe that they placed an implant in them. These are the type of beings that did the implant. Okay, I don't know why it's there. It should not be there. Oh boy, what happened to the spirituality issues? Did I already discuss that? I guess I might have done that already. Okay. Okay, Dr. John Mack's quote. People know their experiences and what they have undergone does not fit with the prevailing mechanistic worldview. Large percentages of people seem to know there is an unseen world or hidden dimensions of reality. This is from the book Passport to the Cosmos, written by the late professor of psychiatry, an academic medical doctor at Harvard Medical School, one of the world's premier researchers of this phenomenon, Dr. John Mack. This is our book. You can contact me later. You could download chapter 1, which is 120 pages, which is the presentation that I did and much, much more. It goes into much more detail. You could download it for free. You go to our website, experiencer.org or consciousnessandcontact.org. We have a card outside that you could pick up. Download chapter 1, which is 120 pages. Okay? If you like it, then you can buy the book. Okay? So we're making that available for everyone. This is our two websites, experiencer.org, consciousnessandcontact.org, and our email is info@experiencer.org, and I said our card is outside. And also, just to let you know, let me go to the very top here. Goodness, I went through a lot of stuff. I guess I went too quickly through it. Okay. We're also going to be having volume 2. Volume 2 is a theoretical volume, and we have many brilliant minds. We have 3 PhD physicists. We have Grant Cameron, Dr. Joseph Burks, 2 people that are here, and Alex Akiris. Back there, he has a wonderful radio show on consciousness, where he has all these PhD academics, all these scientists, writers of all of these topics that I discussed today. The 3 of these individuals are going to be writing a chapter in our book, and together with numerous scientists, physicists, neuroscientists, basically addressing this question: what the hell is happening? Okay? So what is your best explanation? No one really knows. Dr. Edgar Mitchell told me, Ray, we know the equivalent of 1 grain of sand, okay, in an entire beach, as to what the hell is going on. And I responded, and that's just 1 beach. So in other words, we don't know jack shit, okay? And all of these so-called experts that you see on YouTube, on the radio, and these ufology conferences, they're all full of it. No one knows what the hell's going on, okay? We're at the infant stages of trying to understand this phenomenon. Our research study gives us a better idea. And the clues for it is not following mainstream materialist ufology. It's not by spending $35 analyzing these rocks. Okay? Seeing another video that they're releasing with that those folks in that Tom DeLonge group, whatever. So what? I've seen UFOs. He's seen UFOs. He's seen UFOs. You know? Bet you 1/3 of you here have seen UFOs. So what? We know it's real. Okay? No, the key is the experiencer. Okay? And to understand that the experiencer and consciousness has to be intertwined, because consciousness is the door that's going to unlock this. How do we as human beings interact with our multidimensional reality? And on top of that, to add even more complexity to it, is that what we're describing as all the contact modalities, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, remote viewing, UFO contact, communications with ghosts and spirits, channeling, hallucinogenic journeys. Take a DMT hit, okay? Boom. You're having a being that's sitting right in front of you, interacting with you, okay? That's all part of the same phenomenon, okay? It's a multi-dimensional phenomenon where there's a manipulation of space-time, where we, as humans, are interacting with the multiverse, interacting with non-human intelligence. Thank you very much.